I thought my husband was dying in his sleep. His body jerked violently, he gasped like he couldn't breathe, and moaned as if something inside him had snapped. I flew up in bed, heart pounding, ready to call 911 until I heard him whisper, Chloe. I froze. Chloe? I knew one Chloe. And she wasn't a nurse. She wasn't a cousin or a friend. She was the 22-year-old barista from the cafe down the street, the one who always gave us free oat milk and called my husband sir, with a grin that never reached me. It was 2:47 a.m. The blue digital glow of the clock pulsed beside me like a heartbeat. I watched him twitch and sigh, still half lost in that dream, that name, that woman. My phone was in my hand, halfway to 911, now stuck in purgatory. I lowered it, trembling. I didn't wake him. I waited. Not because I was scared, but because I wanted to see if he'd say her name again. And he did. Twice more. By 3:18 a.m. I was wide awake and shaking. By 3:19 I was in our living room, under the sick yellow light of the floor lamp, clutching a mug of tea I couldn't drink and wondering if I was going crazy. Let me back up. I'm Emily, 39, high school English teacher, dog mom, semi-closeted Taylor Swift fan, married to Daniel for 12 years. We met at a college poetry reading, bonded over James Joyce and chai lattes, and had what I thought was a love for the ages. Daniel's a software engineer, sweet, nerdy, dependable. The kind of guy who schedules dentist appointments 3 months early and still buys me flowers on random Tuesdays. At least he used to. Lately something's changed. He comes home later. He showers longer. His phone is always upside down. But he still kisses my forehead every morning, still makes me laugh with dumb puns, still holds my hand in the grocery store like we're 25 again. I told myself I was being paranoid. Until last night. After the dream moaning incident, I didn't confront him right away. Maybe because I needed proof. Or maybe because I was scared of what he might say. So I did what any emotionally spiraling millennial woman does at 4 a.m. I opened Reddit, r/AITA, and typed in a draft post I never submitted. Then I went down a rabbit hole of stories that all felt too familiar. Late-night texts, misplaced earrings, Instagram likes that spiraled into affairs. I couldn't sleep. And when Daniel woke up at 7:12, yawning and stretching like nothing happened, I sat at the kitchen island with dry cereal, pretending to scroll my phone while watching him. He leaned down to kiss my cheek. I flinched. He didn't notice. Hey babe, he said, rummaging for his protein bar. I had the weirdest dream last night. Oh. I tried to keep my voice steady. What about? He chuckled. Don't remember. Just that it was intense. Probably that Thai food. He kissed my head again and walked out the door. I stood there for 15 full minutes after he left, trying not to vomit. That day at school I couldn't focus. My students handed in essays on The Great Gatsby, and I wanted to scream because I suddenly understood Daisy's ache, the way she smiled at Gatsby with tears in her soul. After work I went to the cafe. The one with Chloe. I wasn't even sure what I planned to do. Spy. Talk to her? Order a coffee and hope the universe intervened? She was there. Behind the counter. Ponytail, lipstick too red for a Tuesday. She smiled at me for once. Hi. What can I get you? I wanted to say my husband dreams about you. Moans your name like a goddamn lover in heat. What the hell are you doing to him in his sleep? But I just said, green tea, no sugar. She handed it over. On the house. You're Daniel's wife, right? My blood ran cold. Yes, I said slowly. Why? She laughed. He's just so sweet. Always tips like crazy. Talks about you all the time. I smiled. Felt like a lie. Then she added, you're lucky. He's one of the good ones. And I almost dropped the cup. That night I didn't sleep. Again. The next day I installed a voice recorder app on an old phone and slipped it under his side of the bed. I told myself it was only for peace of mind. That maybe he had said Joey, or go away, and I had misheard in my sleepy panic. But I knew I hadn't. That night I lay awake beside him, watching the shadows move on the ceiling until sleep took him. He snored, rolled over, and at 2:14 a.m., he moaned again. Chloe. My stomach turned. He kept going. You taste so good. I sat up in bed. He laughed in his sleep, a soft breathy chuckle I hadn't heard in months. I couldn't take it anymore. I shook his shoulder. Daniel. He blinked awake, disoriented. What? You were talking in your sleep. He rubbed his eyes. I was. You said her name. He frowned. Who? Chloe. He paused. And in that pause, the silence between us screamed. I saw it in his eyes. Recognition. Guilt. Panic. He sat up. Am I? I didn't let him finish. I recorded it, I said quietly. That shut him up. He looked like I'd slapped him. You recorded me? I thought you were dying. Then I thought you were cheating. Turns out I was right the second time. He covered his face with both hands. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. Emily, I swear I haven't done anything. She's young. And pretty. And she listens. I stared at him. And you moan her name in your sleep. I didn't mean to. That doesn't make it better. Then he said the worst thing possible. I think I'm in love with her. I felt the ground disappear. It wasn't just a crush. It wasn't a dream. It was real. And I was standing in the ruins of my marriage, barefoot and bleeding. He didn't cry. I did. Not at first. I sat in silence, staring at the man I'd loved for over a decade. The man I built a life with. The man who once wrote me poems on napkins and painted our bedroom the exact shade of sky I said reminded me of my childhood. He looked like a stranger now. And maybe that was the cruelest part that hadn't physically changed, but everything about him felt foreign. His voice. His face. His silence. You think you're in love with her? I repeated, my voice cracking in places I didn't know it could crack. She's a barista you flirt with while I'm at work. You don't know her. I know how she makes me feel, he whispered. My heart shattered again. So you don't feel anything with me anymore? He looked away. And that was answer enough. I got out of bed without another word. I didn't scream or throw anything. I walked to the guest room and locked the door. Then I collapsed on the floor, clutching my pillow to my face so he wouldn't hear me break. The next morning I called in sick. He made coffee like nothing happened. He left for work without trying to talk. I guess it's easier to face code than a broken wife. That afternoon, I opened the closet and stared at our life. Vacations. Birthdays. Anniversary photos. A whole decade in framed lies. I couldn't decide what hurt more, the betrayal or the ease with which he dismissed it. I called my sister Rachel. She's younger than me by 4 years, has 2 kids, a loud laugh, and zero tolerance for bullshit. She picked up on the second ring. Hey, everything okay? No, I said, and then I told her. Everything. The dream. The name. The recording. His confession. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she said, do you want me to come over? I can bring wine and 3 forms of sharp cheddar. I laughed. Surprised me. I don't know what I want. That's okay. But you're not staying in that house with him. Pack a bag. You and Cooper, our dog, can crash here as long as you want. I wanted to say yes. But I looked at my dog, asleep on the couch like nothing had changed. And I looked at the house I'd decorated, the garden I'd planted, the kitchen where I'd cooked 1,000 meals for a man who now dreamed of someone else. I couldn't leave. Not yet. That night, Daniel came home at 8:14. No excuse. No apology. He walked in like it was a Tuesday. I met him in the hallway. We need to talk. He nodded. We sat at opposite ends of the couch, a chasm between us. I need to know, I said, if anything physical happened. He hesitated. And then for the first time in 12 years he lied to my face. No. The thing is, I might have believed him if not for the notification that lit up his phone 2 minutes later. From Chloe. A heart emoji and the words. Last night was perfect. Can't stop thinking about you. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply stood up, walked to the kitchen, opened the drawer with the emergency wine, and poured myself a glass. He didn't try to stop me. Your phone just betrayed you, I said calmly. He stared down at it, then at me. I saw the exact moment he gave up pretending. It only happened once, he said softly. I laughed, bitter and raw. You just told me it was nothing. Now it was once? Which is it? I didn't want to hurt you. You did. Over and over. With every lie. He stood up. Please. I never meant for this to happen. She was just there. And I felt lost. Like I was fading. And she saw me. I saw you, I whispered. Not the way she does. Those words broke me in a way his cheating never could. Because I had spent 12 years seeing every part of him, his fears, his flaws, his dreams, and still loving him anyway. But that wasn't enough. He packed a bag that night. I didn't ask him to. He just knew. Before he walked out, he looked at me as if waiting for a fight. Or forgiveness. I gave him neither. After he left, I sat in the silence, wondering if I'd ever feel whole again. The next few days blurred. Rachel came over with casseroles and gossip. My friends texted things like "you're so strong and he doesn't deserve you," and I hated how true they felt. At school, I pretended to care about Shakespeare while my mind replayed Daniel's moans like a haunted soundtrack. But the worst part? Chloe didn't disappear. I saw her again. A week later at the grocery store. She was in the produce aisle, smelling peaches like she hadn't shattered my life. She spotted me and actually had the audacity to smile. I didn't smile back. She approached anyway. "Hey," she said softly. "Can we talk?" My hands clenched around the cart handle. "There's nothing to talk about." She looked nervous. Young. Regretful. "I didn't mean to come between you two. You knew he was married. He said you were unhappy." I laughed. "So that made it okay to sleep with him?" She looked down. "It was a mistake." I stepped closer. "A mistake is putting salt instead of sugar in a recipe. You were a choice." "I'm sorry." "Save it." And I walked away. The thing is, she did look sorry. But sorry doesn't unbreak a heart. Weeks passed. Then months. Daniel didn't come back. Not even to get the rest of his things. I shipped them to his new apartment. I filed for separation. I adopted another dog. I started therapy. And I began to laugh again. Real deep from the belly laughs. But healing isn't linear. Sometimes I still wake up at 2:47 a.m. and reach for him before I remember. And sometimes I don't. Sometimes I wake up with peace. Then just last week I got a text from an unknown number. It read, "I miss you. I made a mistake. Please can we talk? Daniel." I stared at it for a long time. Then I deleted it. Because here's the truth. When someone shows you they'd rather chase fantasy than fight for reality, believe them. And I finally did. About 2 months after I deleted Daniel's message, I saw him again by accident. It was at a bookstore downtown. The one where we used to spend lazy Saturday mornings browsing the fiction shelves and arguing over whether Murakami was genius or pretentious. I hadn't been back since the split, but that day, something pulled me there, maybe a craving for nostalgia, or maybe a desire to reclaim a space that once belonged to us. I was in the poetry section when I heard his voice. Familiar. Too familiar. "Yeah, I think she'd like this one." I turned my head slowly. There he was standing near the front counter holding a book. Chloe was next to him, her hand lightly touching his arm. They looked comfortable. Like they belonged there. Like they'd rewritten my memories and inserted themselves as the leads. I ducked behind a display of staff pics and held my breath. It was stupid. I didn't owe them invisibility. But my heart wasn't ready to be seen, especially not by her. I stayed there until I heard the bell over the door chime and their footsteps fade away. I walked out 15 minutes later empty-handed. That night, I cried harder than I had since the night he left. Not because I missed him but because he didn't miss me. I started journaling again, something my therapist had suggested early on. I called the journal version 2.0, and filled it with things I'd never said out loud. I don't miss him. I miss who I thought he was. I'm scared I'll never trust anyone again, not fully. Not the way I trusted him when I believed the floor under me was solid. I hate how he gets to be happy while I'm still rebuilding. And then one entry in bolder pen strokes. But I'm not broken. I'm healing. That entry changed everything. I began doing small things just for me. I bought a ridiculous pink couch because it made me smile. I went to pottery class and made the ugliest bowl in history and still kept it on my windowsill. I let Cooper and the new dog, Luna, sleep in my bed, even though they hogged the covers. And I started going to the Sunday book club at the library. That's where I met Grace. Grace was 55, wore tie-dye skirts, and swore like a sailor. She had the kind of laugh that filled a room and the kind of insight that cut right through your crap. We were supposed to discuss the Midnight Library that week, but somehow the conversation veered into life, regrets, and loss. I said something casual about my divorce, trying not to invite pity. Grace raised an eyebrow. So he cheated in a dream, and you caught him with your ears? Damn girl, that's some psychic sixth sense shit. Everyone laughed, including me. Then she leaned closer. You want to know the worst part about heartbreak? What? You survive it. That confused me. Isn't that good? She shook her head. No, because you expect to fall apart forever. But you don't. You wake up one day and realize the world didn't stop spinning, and that makes the pain feel small. And being small after something that big makes you question everything. She was right. I had survived. But I hadn't let myself accept that survival didn't need to come with guilt. 2 weeks later, I got a Facebook message from someone unexpected. Rebecca F. I didn't recognize the name at first, but when I opened the message my stomach flipped. Hi Emily. I don't mean to intrude, but I think we might have something in common. I used to date Daniel. A while ago. I recently ran into him and well, he told me a version of your breakup that felt very different from what I'd heard. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. No pressure. I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied. I'd like to hear what he told you. We met for coffee that Friday. Rebecca was tall, blonde, with a steady gaze and a firm handshake. She looked nothing like me. But the moment she sat down and said, he lied to both of us, I felt like I'd known her forever. Apparently Daniel had a pattern. She dated him 3 years before I met him. Said he was charming, attentive, obsessive. Until he wasn't. Until he started pulling away, blaming her for his unhappiness, and subtly rewriting reality until she felt like the villain in her own story. He said you cheated on him, she told me. I laughed. What? Yeah. Said he walked in on you texting another guy. That you left him broken. I shook my head. Unbelievable. She nodded. He does this. Makes himself the victim so he never has to look in the mirror. We sat there in silence for a minute, both holding different versions of the same man. Then Rebecca said something that stuck with me. Closure isn't about them. It's about choosing yourself. That night, I went home and opened a new page in my journal. Today I chose me. And the next morning I did something terrifying. I reactivated my dating profile. Not because I was looking for love, but because I was ready to try. The first few messages were awful. One guy asked if I wanted to Netflix and trauma bond. Another sent an unsolicited photo of his abs with the caption, "You need healing. I'm the cure." I unmatched him immediately. But then came Eli. His profile said, librarian, widower, can make killer cinnamon rolls. Not great with small talk, but excellent with awkward silences. His first message, I don't know how to be charming, but I do know how to listen. If you ever want to talk over coffee or bad poetry, I'm in. I replied, define bad poetry. He sent back a haiku. My dog ate my shoe. But I still love him so much. That shoe had it coming. I laughed. Out loud. For the first time in weeks. We met for coffee the next Sunday. He was taller than I expected, with messy brown hair and kind eyes. We talked for 3 hours. Not about Daniel. Not about betrayal. Just books, dogs, favorite snacks, and how we both hated cilantro. It wasn't magic. It wasn't fireworks. It was safe. And safe felt sacred. By our third date, I told him everything. He didn't flinch. Instead, he reached across the table and said, You didn't deserve that. But I'm glad you survived it. We're still taking it slow. I don't know where it's going. I'm not even sure I want forever again. But I know this. I'm not scared anymore. I trust myself now. And that's enough. Because love isn't blind. Love sees the cracks and chooses to stay. And if it doesn't, then maybe it was never love at all. The first time Eli spent the night at my house, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was nervous, but because everything felt still. No snoring. No sleep-talking. No whispered names from a different life. Just the sound of Luna softly breathing at the foot of the bed, and the warmth of someone who wasn't trying to be anyone but himself. At around 3 a.m., I turned slightly and saw Eli watching me. He smiled, sleepy-eyed. You okay? I nodded. Just thinking. About. I hesitated. The last time I was awake at this hour with someone next to me, it ended in heartbreak. He reached over, brushed a piece of hair from my face. You don't have to rush anything. I'm not here to fix you. Just keep you company if you want it. I blinked back tears. That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me at 3 in the morning. He smiled again, pulled me close and whispered, I also make a killer French toast. So high bar. That morning, true to his word, he made French toast. And I made coffee. We didn't talk about the past. We just existed in the present, two people who'd both been hurt but hadn't let it define them. And as I watched him feed tiny pieces of toast to Luna under the table, I realized something. I didn't want to be angry anymore. I didn't want to keep holding on to Daniel's betrayal like it was a wound I needed to protect. It wasn't my burden. It was his failure. His cowardice. His inability to choose something real when fantasy came easy. And I'd let it go on for too long. So I wrote him a letter. Not because he deserved one, but because I did. Dear Daniel, you don't know this, but I stayed up the night after you left and listened to our wedding song on repeat. I didn't do it to punish myself, I did it because I needed to remember how I once believed in forever. How I believed in you. When you moaned her name in your sleep, it broke me in a way I didn't think was possible. Not because of the cheating though, that hurt like hell, but because in that moment I realized something worse. You had stopped dreaming about us. And maybe you had long before that night. I blamed myself for a while. Wondered if I'd gotten too comfortable, too boring, too predictable. I replayed every argument, every silence, every I'm fine that wasn't. But I don't anymore. Because I see now that loving someone should never require forgetting yourself. And that's what I did for years. I twisted myself into shapes you never noticed just to keep our life easy. Neat. Undisturbed. But I'm done doing that. You once said Chloe made you feel seen. Well, here's the irony. I see you now more clearly than ever. And I know you weren't looking for someone to see you. You were looking for someone to admire the mask. So here's my final gift to you, freedom. You don't owe me an apology. I don't need an explanation. I don't even want closure. I already gave it to myself. Goodbye, Emily. I never sent it. I didn't need to. Writing it was enough. Letting go was enough. It's strange how life reshapes itself when you stop trying to force it back into the mold it once fit. I started painting again. I took a solo trip to Oregon and hiked alone for the first time in my life. I stood on a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean and screamed, not in pain, but in release. I finally changed the Wi-Fi password from Daniel Loves Emily to Luna Rules 123. I hosted my first dinner party in years and laughed so hard with my friends that I cried into my pasta. I started living, not just surviving. And then last month something happened that would have shattered me before. I got a wedding invitation. Daniel and Chloe. I stared at the envelope for a long time. Not because it hurt, surprisingly, it didn't, but because I was amazed at how numb I felt. Not angry. Not sad. Not bitter. Just free. I didn't RSVP. I didn't need to. Because closure isn't an event. It's a choice. And I'd already made mine. The night of their wedding, I curled up on the couch with Luna and Cooper, drank wine straight from the bottle, and binge-watched a terrible reality dating show with Eli. He made sarcastic commentary the entire time, and I laughed until my stomach hurt. At one point he looked over and asked, "Do you ever think about what might have been?" I thought for a moment. Then I said, "Sometimes. But then I look around and realize I like this version better." He smiled. "Yeah, me too. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe Eli and I will last. Maybe we won't. But I do know this. I am not defined by the man who broke me. I am not the woman who begged to be chosen. I am not the heartbreak or the betrayal, or the lonely nights I thought would never end. I'm so much more. And if you're reading this, wondering if you'll ever feel whole again, you will. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But one day you'll wake up in a room filled with quiet joy, surrounded by dogs and plants and music and messy, beautiful life. And you'll realize that your heart didn't just survive. It grew. Stronger. Wilder. Softer. Wiser. And you'll know. The person who walked away, They never deserved the version of you that came after.